Hello Big Finish listeners, I hope you are all well. Welcome back to another Doctor Who audio drama review. In today's review we are taking a trip in the TARDIS with the Dream Team themselves, the 5th Doctor, Adric, Nyssa and Tegan, in a box set rather aptly titled Dream Team. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website on both physical CD and digital download, and can also be purchased as part of a bundle alongside the 5th Doctor release from later this year. So this box set is split into two stories, the first of which is the Merfolk Murders as written by Tim Foley. This is a 4-parter, and the second story of the set is Dream Team as written by Lizzie Hopley, which is a 2-parter. And do also note that the physical CD is now limited edition to 1,500 copies, so they've decided to do this with Big Finish these days. So if you're someone who likes your physical CDs, probably get this one sooner rather than later. And this release does also include the bonus audiobook download for Meanwhile Turlough as written by Jonathan Blum as a part of their Interludes series. So I've been very much a fan of the 5th Doctor in recent months. I absolutely loved the 40 anniversary series. One of my personal favourite releases from 2023 was In the Night. The excellent Pursuit of the Nightjar as written by Tim Foley also, so I was very happy to hear of his return in this set. I think that Foley, especially having written the Auton Infinity as well, is quickly establishing himself as one of the strongest 5th Doctor writers. So I was really happy to return to this season 19 era for the 5th Doctor and his many friends. So let's start off with the Merfolk Murders, which as a dyslexic I find that title incredibly difficult. It is of course another delightful Foley 4-parter opening this set with the TARDIS team landing in St Andrews during the 1940s. The World War is raging and the Merfolk Literary and Dramatic Society is making use of the summer semester whilst most of the students are away to explore many mysteries through the joys of books and storytelling. This week's reading is a book by Orion Hood, a book which certainly piques the interest of the Doctor. As you can guess, by the end of part 1, a murder takes place within this community, and the remaining 3 parts are spent solving this mystery. This episode is very much focused on the humans and their stories and lives. It's a traditional murder mystery with no sci-fi element present. This is one of the joys of the Doctor Who genre. I love stories like this. I know they aren't to everyone's tastes, but once in a while I enjoy the breather from the space and time travel and aliens and everything else in between. I think stories like this feel like a treat, but if it's something that you believe you won't like, then I probably don't recommend this box set, because it is definitely a story that you go into it expecting a murder mystery and that is exactly what you get. And especially given that this story is 2/3 of the content overall, then I probably recommend not buying this box set if it doesn't sound like your thing. It's a much more slow burning story focused on character with a lot less dramatics, but there is a bit of drama in there. There is quite a few heightened stakes, but it's not the type of stakes that you expect within a normal Doctor Who story. If anything, it's a rather theatrical piece. And I don't mean theatrical by over the top, I mean you need to be engrossed within the characters, you need to care about them and their stories and their perhaps motives for murder, and if you're not involved with that, then you won't really get along with it because you won't really see the point. I did feel fully involved within this plot. I think Athena displays a clear passion for literature, whilst the society she's president of has brought together so many different types of people like Professor Margot Hodgson, Henry Cuthbert, Sebastian Callow, and Private Urek. Of course, the narrative's purpose is to then pit these characters against one another as they grow more and more suspicious of each other of who the murderer actually is. And here we see mini investigations starting to form between the different characters, which allows the companions to individually grab the limelight in many different ways. So Adric strikes up a rather close relationship with Henry, which is interesting as it allows Adric to explore his passion for maths and thinking also about his own personal journey once he leaves the TARDIS. I particularly love this idea that Adric takes an interest in academia within this story, because I think it's definitely suited to him, and it's nice to see his eyes opened by something, a world which he's previously not particularly acknowledged, and he's thought, maybe I could find a place in life doing this. And I think Henry is certainly responsible for bringing some of that excitement and interest alive. Nyssa and Private Urek also tackle the feeling of being displaced from their home, and Tegan has lots of great scenes with the Doctor in particular, which I think is actually quite a rarity. At the start of the episode we heard Nyssa and the Doctor split from Adric and Tegan, and I did worry that this episode would waste an opportunity, as it's a pairing formula I think often used within this era. It's so easy to have the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa go off together, because they always seem to be together. It always seems to be them, and then the others are just left to their own devices. And I think that's perhaps Nyssa and the Doctor are quite similar. They're both incredibly intelligent, they both just want to get on with the task at hand, but Tegan and Adric are a little bit more like the naughty school children. But in this episode, by having Tegan helping the Doctor, she supports him in solving the mystery and allows the listener to glimpse this rare dynamic of the two characters being very supportive of one another, and perhaps even Tegan finding her place and purpose within this TARDIS team and feeling that duty to help others. It feels like we're moving beyond that Tegan who simply wants to get back to Heathrow. She's starting to really enjoy her adventures with the Doctor, but also that relationship with him, and I think that this is a little bit of a bonding exercise between these two characters, and realising that both of them actually quite like each other, which, you know, is kind of crucial, isn't it, for a companion and Doctor relationship. It helps to build on the characters much more than we ever got on screen, which basically featured Tegan just wanting to leave all the time. And I know this is something that I've picked up within previous Big Finish audio drama reviews. They continue to rectify some of the rather shallow mistakes of the 80s era of the show. They've gone on to develop the Sixth Doctor massively, but also form actual dynamics within the Fifth Doctor TARDIS team, which previously I didn't feel that invested within, but now I do. I think that this story certainly demands quite a lot of your concentration for maximum enjoyment, otherwise you will probably lose the plot threads and understanding of who the characters actually are and why they are present and doing what they are doing. I know especially within the first part I did feel quite daunted because we were introduced to lots of characters and lots of names all at the same time. I found it quite difficult to keep track, and I thought, right, I've completely zoned out here, I'm going to need to start again, which I did, and I think that benefited the experience. So do certainly bear with this one, give it a chance, but most certainly take note of who is who and why they are there. Did I spot some of the twists coming? Yes. Do I think that took away from the experience? No, not really, as after all, to be honest, I do watch ITV's Vera in my spare time consistently, so I feel like I am quite sort of in touch with murder mysteries and crime dramas. I feel like it's kind of my thing. The really clever thing with Tim Foley's writing is he adds lots of pieces to the puzzle. He keeps the listener guessing, he keeps the characters guessing, while slowly picking away the layers of the plot. It doesn't leave any stone unturned, but I also think because of that, because he's dealing with all of these characters and giving the characters different things to do, no one is particularly underserved. I don't feel like any of the companions are left out. They all contribute something to the plot, and I think that Tim Foley's writing should really be credited for that. And this made all four parts a really easy listen to enjoy within one afternoon sitting. So next up, crabs. Yay! The 1 hour instalment for this box set is Dream Team, split into 2 half-hour parts, seeing the TARDIS team face off against the Cantrafari, also known as the Dream Crabs, which I'm going to refer to them as throughout this review, because that is generally a lot easier. So previously the Dream Crabs did appear within Classic Doctor's New Monsters within that range, and it's interesting to see these new series creations being seamlessly integrated into a classic adventure, and I think that this episode certainly works. And to be honest, moving forward, I think as the Classic Doctor's New Monsters range becomes more and more difficult to establish because they will probably run out of characters at some point, I can see enemies the likes of the Cantrafari being as regularly used as the likes of the Weeping Angels, because I know that they've cropped up in a few series as well. I love the base idea for this story: corporate away days in space, tailored to maximise employees' team building, and it doesn't take long for the listener to join the dots and see how the Dream Crabs can be exploited within that setting. Especially within this TARDIS team, there are many companions, all of which have different responses to the threats that they face, so it's an interesting challenge hearing them work together, especially when they need to face reality that the scenarios that they find themselves in very much aren't reality. The audio form allows this story to be really bold. We are transported into the imaginations of our protagonists, and in turn the imagination of the listener can run wild, visualising these grand cinematic vistas within this story and alien worlds, but also a few Earth locations in there as well, with a few locations which also personally tie to the main protagonists, which I quite like. There's lots of nice nods and references throughout for Tegan and Adric in particular, with some additional references to their previous adventures. Although I do think Nyssa is a little bit overlooked here. Sarah Sutton's performance is great as always. She's the first character that the Doctor must talk around to realising that she's in fact on a beach with a crab latched to her face, she's in a dream world and it's not reality, which in itself is a very horrifying moment, excellently played. But I think the dream itself could have maybe transported us back to Traken or something like that. Maybe we could have had a nightmare between sort of the master taking over her father's body or something. I feel like Nissa's had a rather dark and sad past, and this episode could have definitely exploited that. I wouldn't have even said no to a little surprise cameo of John Culshaw in there as Ainley/Tremus, but, you know, that doesn't happen, sadly. Dream Team works very well within the story's runtime. It's a welcoming listen which embraces the imagination in bold and exciting ways. It's a story that also sums up rather well the potential of the Dream Crabs as a creation, and I enjoyed hearing Davison interact with the various grim revelations throughout this story. Again, I find the Fifth Doctor very easy and comforting to listen to within the audio form as of late, and I think that is also down to how immersive and exciting the adventures are. I think he is definitely the Doctor that has benefited the most from the move to the box set format. But interestingly, actually, given that this is an episode that is very much a four-hander, I think this is another story within the box set that actually demands quite a lot of attention, because if you zone out, I think you will lose the small details of the plot, and then everything just turns into a massive jumbled dream world and nothing quite makes sense. It's a story where it's quite fast-paced, lots is going on, locations are constantly changing. I imagine if you're not fully focused and invested, it will probably all turn into quite a big blur. I do always have a soft spot for a Doctor Who story which is specifically crafted for a particular era of the show, because I think that's incredibly rewarding. Not only is the foe perfectly placed within the narrative, but also the story itself uses our main protagonists and then gets a good performance from the actors. In this episode, the Fifth Doctor is the focus. He is the one with the knowledge, and the way that he has to talk around his TARDIS team to realising the reality, I thought allowed Peter Davison to shine, was also letting the companions somewhat show a more desperate side to their personalities. And I suppose hopping straight from the previous story as well, it is quite a different scenery. We have Dream Crab's murder, these bizarre dreamscapes, moving from a historical murder mystery. It's two very different stories. But I will also reiterate my previous point. I feel like both of the episodes within this set do demand a specific attention that perhaps other releases don't, and therefore I recommend listening to this box set when you have a clear head, because I think if you're distracted or you've got other things on your mind, I don't think you will quite be able to appreciate, or at least I wouldn't be able to appreciate, these specific details within the plot that really makes both of the episodes within this set shine. Bit of an odd one, but if you're a Big Finish listener, hopefully you will understand this. I think that this is one of those box sets that perhaps would suit a summer's day. You've not got anything else to do, you can sit in the sun and you can listen to these rather brilliantly 80s Doctor Who adventures in a stress-free environment. But because of the way that this box set is crafted, I certainly would say that this box set will not be for everyone. I think that the murder mystery, in particular Tim Foley's story, is a slow-burning episode, but it definitely has a lot of drama. It's quite theatrical, and it requires you to have that involvement within the characters and their storylines, but also, I think, interest within this TARDIS team too, something of which that I'm now approaching the Fifth Doctor era with, having loved the previous box sets within this series. And likewise for the Dream Crab episode, that episode is so dreamlike in state, with lots of things going on, it could very easily become a blur. So whilst I wouldn't say that this box set is as enjoyable as the previous one, being In the Night, I still think it has a lot to offer, and to be fair, Pursuit of the Nightjar was an utterly brilliant story, so it set a rather high bar. But speaking of high bars, I think that the upcoming Fifth Doctor release, Goth Opera, I'm really looking forward to that one, and they've just released the cover art for the next volume within the Fifth Doctor adventures as well, so it continues to look like a rather bold and exciting range. So thank you very much for listening to this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular reviews and reaction to the latest Big Finish audio drama releases. Have a nice day, and I shall see you all next time.